Come on in. Welcome to Idled Out, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today is the day. Today, we're looking at my Survivor 45 cast assessment. Throw everything you think you know out. I've got your winner picks, your loser picks, your everything in between picks right here. My guaranteed accurate preseason cast assessment is here to help you with your preseason drafts. Accuracy not guaranteed. If you haven't seen one of my preseason cast analyses before, I do things slightly differently. Each season, I look at each of the players, give a brief overview of their story, personality, and how I think they'll play, and then assign them an award. It's high school superlatives Survivor style. Most likely to be the first boot. Most likely to be purple. Most likely to win. Then, once the season is over, we'll come back to this video and evaluate how right, or wrong, often wrong, I was. As always, I'll be using Mike Bloom's interviews for Parade.com, the cast bios, and the cast videos as the basis of my judgment. We've got 17 new players and one Bruce to get through, so let's get going. All that said, let's take a look at my Survivor 45 preseason cast analysis. Let's first look at the yellow Lulu Tribe, where the award for most likely to be the first boot is regretfully going to 34-year-old middle school principal Sean Edwards. Good news for Sean is I've had Cassidy and Romeo in this spot before, so he's probably going to the final three. But right now, I'm worried for Sean. Sean grew up gay and Mormon, he survived conversion therapy, and it wasn't until 2016 that he was able to live as his authentic self. As a middle school principal, he's probably used to talking to cranky children, and there are more than a few of those here this season. His wedding was partly Survivor themed, so safe to say he's one of the bigger fans of this season. I hope he and his husband voted out members of their wedding party every few hours. I like Sean, he seems really lovable, but I don't know, he's really got early boot vibes from me. He's so eager to get out there and wheel and deal that it's palpable. It's more of a Todd energy than a Russell or Fairplay energy, but that is still a dangerous aura to give off. I also look at his tribe and I'm not sure who he's really aligning with. I think Sean is just one of those players who is going to come out super hard making alliances, but just isn't really going to be able to shake the super fan gamer image he has. And the second the rest of the tribe compares notes, he is likely going to be one of the early targets. When the goal early on is for the die to land on anyone but yourself, it's going to be easy for the rest of the tribe to point at the guy who compares himself to Todd Herzog and say, that's the guy who's gotta go. Sadly, Sean is my first boot pick. Moving on, let's look at the woman I am most excited to watch play. 33-year-old therapist Hannah Rose, winner of the award for most likely to cause chaos. I hope I'm right on this. To me, it seems like there is a straight line from Abby Maria to Jatia to Hannah Rose. Look at her. Hurricane Hannah has landed. So Hannah owns a therapy practice where she manages a team of therapists. She's clearly got good listening and managerial skills, and she got sober at 20, which is a major accomplishment. She sees herself as a mix of Wentworth and Aubrey, so I guess she really wants to come as close as possible to winning without actually doing so. I think on paper, she seems like she'd be a really good player, but therapists and Survivor lately, In her audio interviews, she's very untamed. She kind of just says whatever comes to her mind. She's trash-talking all the other players and calling them pick-me girls. I think if she's already this unfiltered in the preseason when she's in relative comfort, she's really going to let loose on the actual show. If anyone's going to throw the rice in the fire when they think they're going home, it's her. I think there's a very real possibility that Hannah might feel the vibe of the tribe shifting against her at camp, and she just goes nuclear and burns it all down. Metaphorically speaking, possibly literally speaking. That said, this train wreck of a tribe is the best possible tribe draw for Hannah. I do not think Hannah will really be in the power at her tribe, but I do think with this group, she might be able to pull the strings. I think it's possible she may pull a sugar and dictate the tribe with her whims. I really don't expect this tribe to be able to get on the same page about anything, which is perfect for an impulsive player like Hannah to squeak by again and again and again, and all of a sudden she's at the final 5. We can only hope. Next, let's move on to the new era villain we've all been waiting for, 29-year-old software salesman Caleb Gieberwald, whom I am giving most likely to catch big movitis. I am so excited for Caleb. Our resident Canadian, this guy has major used car salesman energy. I mean that as a compliment. In his life, Caleb's always got some cockamamie scheme going. He says he's BS'd his way into every job he's ever had. He started lifeguarding without really knowing how to swim. He started a painting company without ever having painted a home. He invented a fake brother he could blame things on. He's by far the most noticed player in the preseason, with half of his competitors drawn in by his swagger and half completely turned off. He draws a lot of attention to himself on purpose, and he loves it. Here's how I think it'll go for Caleb. I think the Caleb charm will work for a while. On a different tribe, he might get clocked earlier, but this tribe is kind of a mess. Pre-merge, he'll have most of these people eating out of the palm of his hand, and he'll probably dictate how things go often on this tribe. All roads on yellow will lead back to him. On the other tribes, I think Caleb, again, might be in trouble, but this tribe simply cannot afford to lose him. But at the merge, Caleb is going to immediately be one of the biggest targets. And I don't know when it will happen, I don't know how it will happen, but eventually Caleb's going to try to pull off some sort of outlandish blindside or scheme he's unqualified for, just something a tad too cute, and it'll all come crashing down. Regardless, Caleb will have a pretty successful run, I think, and I see like a 6th to 8th place finish for him, and about 6 to 8 confessionals each episode along the way. From one chaotic player to another, let's move on to 28-year-old investment analyst Emily Flippin, who I am giving the award for most likely to be gone way too soon. So Emily's coming to Survivor after she found her life too suburban and boring. I love that. You can't say that Emily isn't self-aware. She describes herself as direct, genuine, and aggressive. And that is, yep, that was my read too. She hates everything. She's completely neurotic. A psych evaluator on the show told her she has almost the exact same results as Chaos Cass. Her, Caleb, and Hannah on the same tribe was an absolute stroke of genius. I do think that an ally like Emily, who wears her heart on her sleeve and always tells you exactly what she's thinking, is a valuable asset. But I'm not sure who on this tribe she really is gonna connect with. I think her best bet is maybe the next 2 people we're gonna talk about. I think she'll probably rub a few people on her tribe the wrong way very early, and probably be at risk of being one of the first few out, which would suck. For those of us in the fan community who love these sort of blunt, no-nonsense women, Emily is a blessing. Again, people who want more villains, here you go. But I unfortunately think she tops out at a sort of early merge, perpetually on the ropes underdog a la Tori. I hope I'm wrong. I really want Emily to pull a Cagayan Cass and get to Final 3, but I'm feeling more of a Cambodia Cass placement on this one. Moving on to the man with perhaps the most preseason fanfare, we have 26-year-old content producer Brandon Donlin, who I think is most likely to be the season's narrator. Respectfully, I think it's very easy to look at Brandon and get Jacob Derwin vibes. Brandon's easily the biggest fan on this season, and possibly of all time. But he's also a self-admitted anxious guy, and I think a lot of these types of superfan players tend to overthink themselves out of the game in the train wreckiest of fashions. I don't know if it's the hair, the loud shirt, but Brandon's got this easygoing and relatable quality that I think will keep him safe unless he goes full Derwin and starts putting rice in the socks. I hope he knows better than to go full Derwin. Brandon's got this really fun idea of forming a breakfast club alliance of all the different personality types. I think if he can craft his own little John Hughes movie, he'll be good. And it's this sort of level-headed, game-savvy, charismatic person that is exactly the type of guy they love to assign primary narrative duties to during the season. Think Owen. Brandon is Owen, just with even longer hair and hopefully more win equity. Now, granted, I think this is kind of a bad tribe draw for him. I'm not really seeing who he can work with here, and I could see Caleb gunning for Brandon early on just because it would be funny to see such an obvious superfan go out first. Which, yeah, it kind of would. Overall, I think Brandon will be at the most risk in the first few votes, but if he can keep this Trainwreck tribe from going off the rails for a few rounds, I think he'll find his click. If he goes early, it's Caleb's fault. If he goes far, he'll get 9 confessionals an episode. Finally, let's close out the Lulu Tribe with 28-year-old trucker and former Marine, Sabaya Broderick, who I am giving the award for least likely to be able to stand their tribe. I am very high on Sabaya. I think she's just got this really lovable southern charm thing going on. She's got the accent, she's got the smile. I think she's going to innately draw people to her and come off as extremely non-threatening, which might not be something she wants. Sabaya strikes me as a pretty rigid and no-nonsense person, and there's a lot of nonsense on her tribe. She's a former Marine, blue-collar worker, one of 5 kids. Her tolerance for BS is going to be low, and I think she's going to hate the jokers she is stuck on this tribe with. I can already hear her confessionals dragging Emily and Hannah, and Caleb, and probably Brandon. That said, I do think she wants the tribe leader role, which I'm certain the Calebs and Emilys of the world will be all too willing to let her take as a shield for them. I think in the early part of the game, it's really tough for me to see Sabaya going anywhere. I think she'll be a pretty solid social player, but I don't really get a huge sense that she's super strategic. But with the charm and physicality she has, she doesn't really need to be. Hard to envision a world where she is an early boot for me. I think she'll be one of about 3 people tops to make it out of this tribe. Let's move on to the Red Reba Tribe, starting with 26-year-old grad student Austin Lee Kuhn, whom I am awarding most likely to have already punched their ticket to the merge. Austin would have to colossally screw up not to make the top 12 here. Super fit guy, charming, smart, non-threatening, good vibes, even better hair. Austin should probably be in consideration as your winner pick. Austin says a lot of who he is today is because of his adolescence, where he was shy, quiet, and self-conscious. But he put in the work to become a social butterfly, and also some chest flies were probably thrown in there, too. There's this duality to Austin that I think will make him really dangerous. Tough but sensitive, smart but surfy, confident but kind. Austin compares himself to Owen and says he thinks he'll be perceived as an Aussie or Woo, but he's really giving Wendell to me. Just a super affable guy with no red flags to speak of who will be indispensable for his tribe in the pre-merge. I think Austin will land more on the social player side of things rather than the strategic, but if he links up with someone who can run the numbers and do all the advantage algebra, he could be a major force this season. Most importantly, shout out to Austin for actually giving a hot take when asked for one. He says that Philip is an A-tier player. That is definitely a hot take. Let's move on to our oldest player this season, 49-year-old attorney Julie Alley, the most likely to get the growth edit. Julie reminds me a lot of Monica Culpepper in that she's on a quest of self-discovery later in her life. 10 years ago, when she was 39, she was in the midst of a divorce, and by happenstance, one of the employees at the divorce attorney's office thought she was a new associate. So she thought, why not? She started law school while pushing 40, and here we are. She comes to Survivor via Survivor Cambodia, where she became enamored with the second chance theme, for obvious reasons. As for her game, look, oldest woman on the season, I don't have to tell you that Julie will be at risk in the first few tribal councils, just on demographics. But if this tribe can avoid seeing Jeff for a few days, I think Julie has a good shot at a deep run. She's got this gentleness to her that I think will make her easy to talk to for most of the players, and I think the sincere, loyalty-based game she wants to play will be quite apparent. And if the people on her tribe are smart, she'd be a good pickup as an ally, because she's gonna ride or die with you to the end, probably to her own strategic detriment. Will Julie win? Probably not. Will Julie last long enough to find what she's looking for on the island? Possibly. Next, let's look at 23-year-old grad student Drew Basile, winner of the award for most likely to have an odd couple relationship. I think Drew's best bet is to link up with Austin and do a sort of Ryan and Devin style thing, or else he's going to be one of the first few out of his tribe. This appears to be his strategy, so smart on him. Drew's a grad student in English and philosophy at UPenn, and he worked in a call center in college making sales, so he knows how to schmooze a little bit. That said, and I could be entirely reading into things too much, but I sense a bit of an ego on Drew. That's understandable in real life. He's super accomplished and has a bright future ahead of him. But in Survivor, when any negative personality quirk, real or perceived, can get you voted out, that may not be so great. And maybe it's just me, but Drew also doesn't seem super self-aware. He repeatedly refers to himself as having this perception as slimy, and like, okay, Caleb could be slimy. I could even see Jake as slimy. Dude, you are not even in the top 10 slimiest people on this cast. Definitely top 10 most likely to eat tots out of your pants pocket, or to call Tina a fat lard. But not top 10 slimiest. Drew's best bet is to do what he says. Play the Ryan Ulrich game and link up with someone in power who complements his weaknesses. But if he fails to make those early tribal connections though, Drew may be begging his tribe to vote for Pedro instead of him. Probably pre-merge. Next, let's look at 24-year-old singer J Maya, whom I am giving the award for most likely to have dangerously positive energy. Marianne upside, Mariah downside. This is the type of player who is super excitable, sincere, and eager, which is often an early hurdle but a late game benefit. J Maya was attending Harvard Law School when one of her songs went viral on TikTok, so she dropped out and moved to LA to pursue a music career that most of her friends and family didn't even know she was pursuing. Obviously, doing something like that takes a lot of guts, and that sort of risk-taking is something that would probably be a big benefit to her game. But I do lean towards the earlier boot side of things with J Maya. She's got by far the most long-winded interview and gives like 2 or 3 answers to every question. If the other players can't get a word in edgewise, or worse, they're just straight up annoyed by her, that could be a major liability for her game. I do think this is a relatively good tribe draw for her though. I think most of the other people here with her are patient and kind individuals, so if they can avoid tribal for a few rounds, she'll probably find her group. But if Reba's going to tribal early on, J Maya will be singing the blues. Next on red, let's look at 33-year-old gym owner Nicholas Alsop, aka Sifu, who I think is most likely to be Facebook's favorite. This guy has big fan favorite energy, and I think he's really going to resonate with the more casual fans in particular. This guy rocks. Sifu's been doing Tai Chi since he was a child, and he's competed in nationwide tournaments. He's obviously leaning into that part of his personality with the nickname, but he's also got a cool story. he was adopted but found his biological family via Ancestry.com. Sorry, intro package haters, but Sifu's getting one. I think Sifu's got this high-energy teddy bear vibe that will play to his advantage, and his tribe will definitely be looking to him to lead them in the challenges. That said, Sifu's own worst enemy may be himself. I think he's got this over-eagerness to kind of come out there guns blazing with regards to gameplay. He wants to go find idols, he wants to find advantages, he wants to go on journeys, he wants to play like Tony. If he can resist the urge to come out super hot, he's all good. But if he comes out and immediately starts building spy shacks and looking for idols, he'll be in a lot of trouble. I think there are players on his tribe who would look at him and be like, this dude's built like the Juggernaut from X-Men, he's doing Tai Chi every morning, and he has an idol, he's gotta go. Overall, I like Sifu's odds. He's probably in it for the long haul, but the potential for an overplay flameout is there. Whatever the result, the moms on Facebook will love him. Closing out Reba, let's look at the most likely to win or be first boot, 26-year-old entrepreneur D. Valladares. With 23 years of Survivor viewing, I think I've got a pretty decent idea of how people will do. There are always surprises, of course, but I feel like I'm alright at this. D is one of those players, though, where it could go either way for me. It's a coin flip. Initially, her bio has a lot of green flags, and I was pretty high on her. She started her own backpack company because she loves to travel and has an adventurous spirit, and working with her business partners given her experience with compromise. She knows well enough not to let slip that she's in sales. Her parents came to America from Cuba with very little, so it seems like she knows what it's like to struggle. She's humble. She also does CrossFit, which, okay, that's actually a red flag. Here's where the trouble comes in for D. D's one of the many players this season who found Survivor during the pandemic, and I just get like really casual viewer vibes. Maybe the most casual fan playing this season. Like, D's not going to be reciting the boot order to Season 3 with Drew or anything. I don't necessarily think that's the worst thing in the world, but I'm just not getting a sense she really has the knowledge of the game or the strategic chops that take a good Survivor player to a great one. Don't get me wrong, I think she'll be a solid social player. I don't think she has some super hardcore game in her, but I do think she has some Michelle or Natalie White social game upside. But I do think she also has random second boot Justine downside, and we'll all be like, D who? In a month and a half. Overall, probably the hardest player for me to place this season because her archetype is so sink or swim. Flip the coin. Finally, let's head the blue Belo Tribe off with none other than 47-year-old insurance agent Bruce Peralt. Bruce played for about 12 hours in Survivor 44, but about 11 and a half of those hours were severely concussed, so he's back for a proper shot. Bruce hopes to bring some drunk uncle energy to the tribe this time around, but that may just be the concussion talking. I'm just going to go ahead and copy-paste my analysis of Bruce from last season, because I don't think much has changed about his game. He's still the most likely to be way too loyal. It's Survivor's oldest archetype, literally. Guy over 40 who plays a loyalty-based, old-school style game. He rides or dies with one or two other players and is either in the final 5 or the first 5 out. No exceptions. I think Bruce fits right into that mold because he tells us that's what he wants to do. But he's also just a no BS kind of guy. Bruce grew up in the foster care system and his parents adopted 8 of the over 100 children they fostered. Now he's a husband and father with 2 kids of his own, so he's got a lot of life experience that a lot of this younger than average cast just don't have. I'm actually feeling pretty good about Bruce's chances though. A lot of people on this cast are looking for someone who's going to be the exact kind of ally you can just tell from a glance that Bruce is. So Bruce's success will be based on whether he hitches his horse to someone in the majority or not. I'm betting he will, and smaller tribes only make it easier for this type of player to succeed. If he goes out early, it's to weaken his ally. But I'm feeling like Bruce is in the game for the long haul as a dependable provider and ally. Next, let's look at 35-year-old civil rights attorney Keturah Tops, whom I am awarding the most likely to be the "oh yeah, she's a threat" first finale boot. You know what I mean here. I'm feeling like Lindsay 42 or Lauren 44 vibes. Strong player, not majorly popping off the screen and slightly under-edited, but on the island, a very real threat to win. This is the late merge or first out in the finale boot where we're all like, oh yeah, her. Here's why. Keturah is a tough woman. She's very social justice minded, so much so that it's literally her career. She's a queer black woman from the Midwest, but she wants people to know she's more than just her career as a civil rights advocate. I was initially pretty down on Keturah's chances. I think just reading her answers, there's this intensity and seriousness that makes her seem like a tough nut to crack. But in her audio interviews, her voice lends her this lovable, bubbly quality that makes her come off as honestly rather unassuming. That's probably a good thing. With big personalities like Jake and Kendra on her tribe, plus returning player Bruce, I think Keturah's best play is to kind of fade into the background a bit for the first few rounds. I do think Keturah has the maturity and life experience to succeed in this game, and this is a good tribe draw for her. I can totally see her connecting with Bruce and Kelly. I do think if Keturah has a problem though, it may be her inability to get goofy. In her interview, she's asked what celebrity or fictional character she'd like to have visit her for the family visit, and she just says her family. You can't just play along with the silly prompt. Still, I really struggle to see how Keturah goes home early. I think she'll probably play a pretty straightforward and loyalty-based game, but be one of the more under-edited players of the season. She'll pop up in the finale or just before as a late-game threat, and then we'll find out in the post-game interviews that everyone was terrified of her making Final Tribal Council. Let's move on to 22-year-old software developer Brando Meyer, winner of the award for most likely to have practiced the puzzles beforehand. Okay, this one's cheating. Brando literally says he printed out the puzzles on paper and practiced them at home. But I knew that just by looking at him. It's not quite 3D printing, but if anyone was going to be practicing the puzzles, it's Carson's long-lost twin brother. Nevertheless, I have no choice but to stan my fellow Seattleite. This is a pro Brando channel. Brando wants to play the class clown on Survivor. He's young, he looks young, he loves puns and pulling pranks. Brando's success in this game will be entirely dependent on if his tribe is picking up what he's putting down. I think they might. I could totally see Brando connecting with Bruce or Kelly. I think Brando's connection to Survivor is really touching. He tuned in as a kid because it was one of the only shows on TV that showed Asian men at all. He specifically cites loving Yao Man and Ty. And David Wright somehow gave Brando the confidence to lose 50 pounds. I'm still not entirely sure how that works, but good for you, Brando. Overall, I could see things going either way for Brando. I think he wants to play a conservative game at the start, which is smart, but he's got to start making connections early because I think just by his size, he could be viewed as the most dispensable player on this tribe physically. Better hope that puzzle practice paid off. I think he'll probably have a stronger than average strategic mind for the game, but he may not have the social capital to pull off the moves he wants. Is Brando a contender for the win? Probably not. Is Brando a contender for Jeff fawning over how he practiced the puzzles? Probably. Next, let's look at 31-year-old bartender Kendra McQuarrie, who I believe is most likely to be this season's Robbed Goddess. She's got the authenticity of Carolyn, the spirit of Michelle, and the woo-woo vibes of Cassidy. Twitter will be eating her up. Seriously, take Cassidy and dial her up to 11. Kendra's a free spirit. She was literally on a solo backpacking trip across Spain when she got her audition callback, and she did the whole process out of hostels on spotty Wi-Fi. She's the real deal. Tattoos, travel, she could probably tell you your star sign, your moon sign, your sun sign, whatever other signs there are. I really don't think a player like this can win at the end, but I could see Kendra going pretty far. She's got this adventurous and independent spirit that is just really engaging. She's super fit, and I don't really see her playing too hard or too fast. My only concern is that this is a pretty grounded tribe spiritually, but I think the stars will align for Kendra here thanks to her natural charisma. She's just too fun to vote off early. I'm feeling like possibly final tribal loser, which we will then all argue about until the end of time. Let's move on to 26-year-old attorney Jake O'Kane, who I believe is most likely to be this season's final boss. Your Rick Devanses, your Jesse Lopez's, your Jake O'Kanes. These are the obstacles the winner must ultimately overcome at the final hour to win the game. Jake's a recent law school grad hoping to move out of grandma's house with his winnings. This guy's got a lot of fun little contradictions. He's got this rough and tumble look, the Boston accent, but then he's also a theater teacher for kids in his spare time and is pontificating about why Survivor Vanuatu is his favorite season. Jake's Survivor training came via studying for the bar, which prepared him mentally, and his newfound focus on working out, in which he got fit and lost 80 pounds. Jake's also another longtime fan. I mean, you're not pulling out Vanuatu Chris references unless you know your stuff. Jake's going to be a ton of fun to watch. He's got this sort of tough guy teddy bear energy that Mike Turner had. And as a theater kid, he wants to lean into the theatrics and drama of Tribal Council. He'll probably be responsible for some of the most fun Tribal Council moments this season, for sure. If this guy gets an idol, he's going to make a meal out of playing that thing. Overall, I think Jake is likely to be one of the main strategic players in charge of his tribe pre-merge. He'll be a target post-merge, and he's probably going to be the one leading a lot of the blindsides. Everyone will know he's gotta go, but no one will be able to get him out until the very end. He's gonna be able to BS his way out of almost anything. Not something I say about a lot of theater kids, but I really like this guy. Finally, let's look at 30-year-old critical care nurse Kelly Nalbandian, who I am giving the award for most likely to win Survivor 45. This may be an ice-cold take, but I'm going to give Kelly the biggest compliment you can give a player in this game. She's Spradlin-esque. Kelly worked as a nurse in New York City during the height of COVID, so she's obviously a very tough and resilient person. That's also what brought her to Survivor, basically stuck in quarantine after long shifts. She just put on Survivor and now she's on it. She wants to use the perception of nurses as kind and trustworthy to her advantage to pull people in. And I do think, unlike a lot of people here, she has that killer instinct needed to succeed in the game. She even says that if Bruce bonks his head again, he shouldn't call her she's on vacay. I feel really good about Kelly's odds. Until Survivor 43, nurses had a pretty great track record in the game, and I think there's a lot of natural allies on this tribe for her to pick up. Kelly says she wants to do a woman's alliance, but ironically, I think the people she'll connect with most here are probably like Bruce and Brando. I like that she says she wants to lie, but she wants them to be motivated lies. People like Caleb want to come out here and just lie for fun. Kelly will only lie when she needs to. That's a good strategy. She wants to let people feel heard and be able to be vulnerable with her, and then stab them in the back when the time is right. Her strategy is sound. There's roughly 0% chance Kelly goes home early. She's a pretty grounded person on a grounded tribe. She's athletic. Things would have to go sideways for Kelly to leave the game early. She's charming, self-aware, and fit, and more than anyone else, I think she has the best head for the game for both gaining actual social capital and knowing when to cash it in on a big blindside. Kelly is going to win this game. or she'll completely implode like the last nurse who played Survivor and make me look very, very silly. One or the other, for sure. Got nothing else for ya. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts on the cast of Survivor 45 below. Until next time, don't get idled out.